D&D number 10, Circle of Life in Jesus' Name, part 2. This is the very end of chapter 22 and then all of chapter 23, period. I apologize. I received a phone call in the middle of videoing and it cut me off. So here is the end of chapter 22. Do you need any help with anything? Young Eric laughed, talking to his grandmother. Nope, it's all taken care of. Where are the kids? Luciana came to help today. She's at the house and Agent Ward is there to assist her in anything she might need. Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm going to try to get out of here. Shelley smiled at her young grandson. You and Jordan have fun, but not too much fun. Yes, ma'am. He turned and smiled at his girl. He nodded toward the door. She met him there and they slipped out. You don't have to drive slow, she quipped as he helped her into her car. I can keep up. He grinned. We'll see. We'll just see about that. The pizza place is only about a mile from here. Follow me there, and then if you want to race to my house, you're on. She grinned and revved her engine. He chuckled. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to the gate at the South Keno estate. The gate opened. So funny. It will be hours before another train comes by sometime, but it always comes by when I start recording. So funny. Let's see. Follow me there, and then if you want to race to my house, you're on. She grinned and revved her engine. He chuckled. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to the gate at the South Keno estate. The gate opened, and Eric pulled in far enough for Jordan to get through the gate and stopped and got out of his car and went to the door of the gatehouse. Jordan watched as an agent stepped out holding 3 pizza boxes. Her eyebrows lifted. 3? The agent handed the boxes to Eric and he pulled off the top one and handed it back to him. The agent smiled and nodded. Jordan smiled too. He was always thinking of others. He jumped back into his car and pulled to the front door. Jordan got out of her car and looked up at the place her guy called home. The home was very large. There were 3 stories, it appeared, a bunch of bedrooms and bathrooms on the top level. On the entry level, there was a formal living room, a very large den, an office or study, 2 more bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, a giant kitchen, a giant dining room. The house was only similar to his grandparents' house in that it had the ocean for a backyard and giant, beautifully manicured lawn for a front yard, and the kitchen at the back of the house where one could look out the kitchen window and watch the sunset. But the dining room at what they call the South Estate was on the other side of the kitchen, and the stairway leading up to the bedrooms was not accessible from the front entryway like at his grandparents' house. The South Estate's giant staircase faced the large open kitchen, so that when you come down the steps in the morning, you walk about 10 steps forward and you could sit at an enormous breakfast island. She followed 3 into the kitchen. He set the pizza boxes down, grabbed a couple of plates from the cabinet, and pulled several paper towels from the roll. These he handed to Jordan. What you want to drink, he asked. What you got? He opened the fridge. There's water. There's some LaCroix. There's some juices like mango, papaya, orange, cranberry. Oh, and there's some ginger ale, the real stuff. I'll try that. He grabbed a couple of cans and a bottle of water and handed them to her. He grabbed the pizza and plates and they walked back to the den. Jordan looked around. She'd been in here before, but last time it was filled with his family and she hadn't really noticed the room itself. It, too, was large. It had a giant screen TV on one wall and some shelving along another wall covered in books. There was plenty of room for 2 large L-shaped sofas and 4 large recliners. In front of one of the sofas was a very large coffee table. 3 set the pizza boxes down there and opened them up. They sat down on the sofa and he smiled at her. You want to say the blessing? I don't think I'm ready for that yet. No problem. Just thought I'd ask. I didn't want to be a blessing hogger. She laughed. No, I don't feel that way. You go ahead. He quickly blessed the food and they dug in. She took a huge bite of pizza. He took a huge bite of pizza and then grabbed up the remote and started surfing for movies. What do you want? We got dramas, rom-coms, action, lots of action movies. Westerns, oldies, martial arts, sci-fi, documentaries, romance, Hallmark, musicals, classics, really old classics, or we could watch one of my mom's or one of my dad's, though I don't really want to do that. She laughed. I don't know, you choose. He shrugged. Okay, well, how about this one? She looked at the highlighted movie. Yeah, I've always wanted to see that. You've never seen it? I probably haven't seen most of those movies. I think it would be easier for me to tell you what I have seen instead of what I haven't seen. Okay, well, we'll start with this one and we'll make a lifelong goal to see all of these movies. Lifelong? He nodded and looked into her eyes. Yes. She didn't push it, but she liked the way that sounded. He pushed the button on the remote and the movie, Ghost, with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, started to play. So, like, is this a scary movie? He chuckled. Well, maybe a little bit, but not the way you think. They chowed down on their pizza, guzzled ginger ale, and then leaned back on the sofa to watch the movie. Young Eric pulled a fuzzy blanket off the back of the sofa and covered them up. Jordan cuddled against his side, sighing with pleasure. Their bellies were full, she was warm and comfortable, and cuddled up close to the most wonderful guy in the world. But Jordan got upset when Patrick Swayze in the movie almost immediately gets killed. 3 had to calm her down to get her to watch the rest of the movie. He did that by kissing her. But she got upset again when the bad guy came to see Demi Moore. It's gonna be okay, Eric said. She sniffed. He's dead. How's it gonna be okay? He lifted her chin to look into her eyes. You know, it's just a movie, right? She nodded and wiped a tear from her eye. He frowned. Are you actually crying? She shrugged. He chuckled. Baby, you are so sweet. He bent his head and kissed her softly. Jordan sighed at the touch of his warm lips to hers. He kissed her so slowly. He tasted her lips. He nipped at her bottom lip, then her chin. He rubbed his cheek over hers and then went back to her mouth and kissed her deeply. He pushed her down and he laid beside her. She rolled to her back so he could continue kissing her. He kissed her over and over and her body grew warm with want. He knew he was getting to the place where he might lose control when he imagined his hands on her body. And he pulled back, drew a deep breath, and turned her to face the TV. Watch the movie. It has a happy ending. She sighed. Okay, if you say so. I say so. She nestled back against him. He put his arm around her waist and closed his eyes in complete bliss at the smell of her and the feel of her in his arms. That was the end of chapter 22, and now we're starting chapter 23, September 28th, Saturday morning, South Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Young Eric woke with a start when his phone went off. He turned off the alarm and glanced at the time. It was 7 a.m. He'd fallen asleep during the movie, which meant he'd been asleep for about 10 hours. Jordan lay on the couch next to him, but turned toward him, her face nestled against his chest. She moaned slightly when he tried to move. He hated to wake her. She was sleeping so soundly, but he had to get moving. Slowly, he lifted himself up and climbed over the back of the sofa. She immediately stretched out to take up the whole space, making him smile. He quickly ran upstairs, used the restroom, changed clothes, headed back down to the kitchen, and made his smoothie. He gulped it down, rinsed out the glass and the blender, and went back to check on her. She was still sleeping. He pulled the cover up over her shoulder, turned and headed out to the back glass doors to the beach. He frowned. He'd missed the sunrise by about 30 minutes. His grandfather had told him to take an extra hour this morning. Still, he hated to miss the sunrise. He made his way across the large deck and to the steps that led down to the beach, but stopped. When something caught his eye on the first step. A cigarette butt. This was not good. Quickly, he went back in the house, got a plastic bag from the kitchen, came back and scooped up the butt. He searched the area and found another butt on the beach. It could be anybody. Some person walking the beach at night who got curious about the big house on the hill and came up to inspect. But he doubted that. He pulled his phone to call his Uncle Joey, but remembered he and his whole family were going to the game in Oregon State today. So instead he called Jason and told him what he'd found. Okay, I'll send an agent to retrieve the butts. We'll run DNA on them and see what we have. And in the meantime, I'll pull video from the security cameras and get a visual. Thanks, Uncle Jason. Yep, and I don't want you on the beach alone. Uncle Jason, I can take care of myself. Some men once took your father off of a beach. You know that, right? Young Eric sighed. Yes, sir. With your dad out of state, I feel responsible for you. So, young man, I don't want you down there on the beach alone. Go to your grandfather's house and do your work out there. You were going there anyway, right? Yes, sir. Get a move on. Yes, sir. I have to wake Jordan. Jason was silent a moment. Nothing happened. Nothing yet, but it's not my place to say. Yes, it is. You can say what you feel you need to say. Just be careful, Eric. Regret is no fun. Live in a way that you won't have to face regret. Message received. Okay, I'll get off that beach. Yes, sir. Young Eric ran back into the house, locked the door, and went to wake the beautiful blonde sleeping on the sofa in the den. He sat beside her, softly touched her shoulder. She sighed, stretched, and turned over. Good morning, 3, she purred. He smiled. Good morning, 2-3, he returned. What time is it? It's 7:30. Are you already done with your workout? No, I haven't started yet. I had a little glitch, so I've been ordered to go work out at my grandfather's house. Ordered by whom? He sighed. By Jason. Why? She asked, becoming alert. He frowned. Well, it appears we had a visitor last night. Someone hanging around outside got as close as the deck. Jason doesn't like it. So someone like a peeping Tom kind of person, or a vagrant, or something worse. Well, he's checking the video off the security cameras. We'll know soon. For now, I have to get you up and off to see your family before I can leave. Agent Trout won't be here until 8, she said. Eric frowned. Well, how does he know to come here? I called him last night after you fell asleep and told him I was going to stay here. You were so sound asleep, I didn't want to wake you to see me off. But I told him, but I'm sorry, I told him 8. I didn't know we'd need him earlier. No worries, it's not that long. We'll wait. So I've messed up your workout. You haven't messed up anything. Would you like one of my famous smoothies? Sure, she said as she sat up. He smiled at her. So I guess I should apologize. I didn't mean to fall asleep and leave you stranded. Guess I was really tired. You were worn out, and with good reason. Besides, no need to apologize, because I love sleeping with you. I love sleeping with you, too, except when I'm not tired, and all I do is try to control myself all night. That's no fun. So as long as you're worn out, I can sleep with you? My father would still say that that's playing with fire. She smiled. That's just 'cause I'm so hot. He laughed. You are when you make dad jokes. Now kiss me and go freshen up while I make your breakfast. She kissed him quickly and ran upstairs to the bathroom. He worked on her smoothie. Just as he poured it into a cup for her, his phone buzzed. What you got, Jason? Well, you're not going to like it. The man smoking those cigarettes is Peter Perez. Damn. Sorry, Uncle Jason. He was there almost an hour. He appeared to be drunk because of the zigzag of his walk. Came from the south on the beach, walked around the entire house. If he touched a window, an alarm would have sounded, so I'm guessing for now he was just curious, casing the house, or, excuse me, casing the house, or possibly getting the layout. I don't know what he's thinking, but you did piss him off the other day on the phone. Do you think he knew that Jordan was here? I don't think he has the resources to track her, but he might assume that she was there. Eric nodded. Now what? We'll have to up security, have someone monitor the cameras, turn on the electric fencing. Or can we wait to call my father? I mean, he's with Taylor and I don't want to worry him. What a silly question. You think I would honor that request? No, sir. Do you think he'd want me to honor that request? No, sir. Okay, it was a stupid request. Tell Jordan what's up so she can be aware. It's going to scare her. Good. Got it. Thanks, Uncle Jason. You're welcome. Do not dally. Yes, sir. Jordan came downstairs and sat at the island. He set the smoothie in front of her. What's wrong? She asked immediately. He sighed. Drink your smoothie first and then I'll tell you. She smiled. That sounds ominous, but okay. He watched her drink as he tried to decide how to let her know what was up. Finally, he decided to just come out with it. I was just talking to Jason. So, the guy who visited us last night, it was your stepfather. She stopped sucking on the straw and put the cup down. Immediately, her hands began to shake. He moved around to stand next to her, and she turned on the stool to face him. He was here? How? He walked up from the beach. He circled the house and hung out about an hour. Oh my God, Eric, what is he thinking? What do you think he wanted? We're not sure what he's thinking. Maybe casing the place, trying to figure out if he can get in, get to you, get to me, get to my family. I don't know. As Jason reminded me, I pissed him off the other day when I threatened him. He could be after you, or he could be after me. Tears filled her eyes. What are we going to do? Well, babe, don't be afraid. I'm certainly not afraid of him. But what if he comes after you, she said, her voice hysterical. He smiled. Oh, I really hope he does. I'd love to have a reason to take him down. She shook her head. No, 3. He's not honorable. He won't come right at you. He'll sucker punch you. And I'm not talking about with his fist. He'd sneak up on you or put a bomb in your car or something like that. He wouldn't face you in a real fight. Eric took out his phone. Right. He only beats up on little girls. He called Jason, put it on speaker. All ready? Jason asked. Sorry, but I just thought about something. He had to realize Jordan was here because we left our cars out front. On the video, did he go near the cars at all? He passed by the cars. He didn't stop or touch them or try to break into them. Jordan says he'd do something like plant a bomb. I believe her. So put cars away at night, lock the garage. From here on out, we'll activate the fence between the beach and the house. Still, take precautions until we are able to find this guy. A loose cannon is dangerous. Yes, sir. He looked at his phone as it buzzed. Granddad is trying to call. Thanks, Uncle Jason. Yep. Good morning, Granddad. You're on speaker. Good morning. I've been briefed on the situation. Uncle Jason works fast. He has to. He has a large company to run. Why doesn't he pass something like this off to one of his assistants? He does. But family matters he handles personally. Him or Joey. Eric, I'd like you to pack a bag and stay at my house until your parents get back. Eric sighed, but I'm okay. Jason says we'll up security here and turn on the fences and put 2 men in the booth. Yes, and I still want him to do that, but I want you here. Is there no way I can talk you out of that? I can take care of myself. Talk me out of it? No. Still, you have your own free will. You can obey my wishes or not. That's up to you. Let me just say, I have a strong feeling about this, and I'm usually right. I've spoken to Jeffy, and she too has a strong feeling about this. Honor my wishes or not, Eric. The choice is yours. Eric smiled. Well, geez, Granddad, you have to know when you put it that way, there's no way I could disregard your wishes. I'll go pack a bag. But, Granddad, I was going to take Jordan on a date this afternoon. Where to? I was going to teach her to surf over at Ocean Park, and then we were going to get cleaned up and go to dinner, maybe dancing. Big night. Well, I'm not gung-ho about Ocean Park. The agents can't follow you out. Teach her to surf here. The breaks are big enough for a beginner. Dinner and dancing is doable, but you'll have to have a couple of tails. Sighing, young Eric agreed to his grandfather's wishes. He hung up and smiled at Jordan. Well, there you have it. She put her hands up around his neck. As long as we're together, that's what really counts. He bent his head and kissed her. You're right. I'm sorry about all this. Don't apologize for the actions of others. You're not responsible for what they do. It kind of makes me a real downer to be with, though. You're about to make me mad. She giggled. Oh, I'm shaking in my boots. You should be, he said as he pulled her off the stool, flipped her onto the floor, and straddled her. She pulled back a fist, making him laugh. He grabbed both her arms and pinned them over her head and smiled down at her. What now? She tried to buck him off, and he gave a grunt, but his smile disappeared. He lowered himself, pressed his body against hers, and kissed her. She immediately stopped resisting. When he lifted his head, they both were breathing hard. Your phone is buzzing, he murmured. I can't get to it. He moved aside and let her up, and she looked at her phone, sighed. Agent Trout is here. He stood and pulled her up. Well, Miss Jordan Brooks, you have a great morning with your family. When you leave there, meet me at my grandparents' house. Bring a bathing suit. She smiled and gave him a brief kiss. Bye, 3. See you later. Eric watched her gather her purse and shoes and head out. He followed her to the door. Jordan started toward her own car, but Agent Trout spoke with her. He gestured up toward young Eric, and Jordan frowned. She went back up the front steps to him. What's wrong? Agent Trout has asked me to ride with him from now on until they are able to find Peter. I think that's a good idea. He told me to get you to put my car in the garage, so here's the keys. Eric smiled, took the keys, and kissed her hand. Bye again. She smiled. Bye. She trotted down the steps, got into Agent Trout's front seat. He closed the door, waved at Eric, got in the car, and drove away. New scene. It's September 28th, Saturday morning, Sky Nash Studios, Nashville, Tennessee. Carol bit down on her lower lip. These were kids. Taylor was a minor. She'd gone out of her way to choreograph a number that had no sleaze in it. But these 2 kids were hot. She looked over at her assistant. What do you think, Steph? She whispered. The woman shook her head and spoke softly because of the other people in the room. I think that may be the sexiest dance you've ever choreographed. Carol nodded. I actually tried to make it not sexy. I see that. The moves are innocent, but these 2, the chemistry is hot. That Gabe, have mercy, he is a stud. And when he puts his hands on her waist to lift her, the way he does it, it makes your mouth go dry. He's hot. Not just the way he looks, but like... Goodness. Not just the way he looks, but like his natural way, like his masculine way. He's going to have to beat them away with a stick after this airs. Carol glanced over. Goodness. Carol glanced over her shoulder at the keynotes. She couldn't tell if they were pleased or angry. Well, she had to face it sometime. She put a smile on her face and went to where they stood near the front of the room. So, what do you think? It might need a little tweaking. Bree smiled. What's wrong, Carol? Carol looked down, sighed, and looked back up. Well, I don't want you to think that I'm exploiting your child, but it turned out a little sexier than I thought it would. It's pretty sexy, Ricky agreed, but with those 2, holding hands is sexy. Right, Carol agreed quickly. I'm not sure what to do to tone it down without you having them walk around together. This is a dance show, so they have to actually dance. I guess I could make it where he doesn't lift her, but he's so good at it. And remember, he's not a trained dancer, so he loses some points on that, but he makes up for it when he lifts her so effortlessly. The transitions are great. Her natural style is phenomenal. I can't wait for her to get into class. Bree nodded. Her volleyball season ends in a few weeks, and after that, dance will be her big thing. I hope you understand that she'd already committed to volleyball when she found out from you that she wasn't too old to start dancing. I mean, the volleyball coach had given her a special tryout since she missed the real one, and we didn't think she should quit after that. She's been kind of a late bloomer, not knowing what she wants to do or what she can do until recently. Much of that is our fault. We were sort of protecting her a little too much. Carol waved her concern away. Well, you don't have to explain. I understand completely. I am just very excited, though, to hear what her dance teachers have to say once she starts at my school. She sighed. So, you don't think the dance is too sexy? I mean, for a minor? Ricky frowned. Like you say, I don't see how you can change it, and this number, to me, isn't even as sexy as the Uptown Funk number. Carol nodded. Yes, I think I might agree, but they did the choreography in that one. I just brushed it up a bit. So I can't take the blame there, she said with a laugh. Well, those 2 can't help but be sexy, Bree said. They both are gorgeous. They are totally in love with each other, and it shows in everything they do. But I have to say, when Gabe does that move like a New Zealand haka with those strong thighs moving in and out, it's pretty mesmerizing. Ricky laughed. I'll have to remember that. You know, my love, us Hawaiians do the same kind of thing, the hoakoa. Yes, I've seen you do a little of it. You know, Ricky, you and your dad and your son and Gabe, And your brothers and their sons? You should teach them and do it for me on my next birthday. Ricky nodded. You got it, babe. Uh-oh. Cool. Ricky nodded. You got it, babe. He looked down at his phone buzzed and read the text. Call me when you get a moment. He looked up. It's Jason. I need to step out and call him. New scene, September 28th. It's late Saturday morning, Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Young Eric nodded at his grandfather, took a deep breath, and went through the fighting sequence again. Again, Grandmaster Keno said softly. Faster. Young Eric did as asked. Again. He did. Again. He did. There. Did you feel the difference? Young Eric shook his head. Well, then do it again, Grandmaster Keno said. He did. Again, he commanded. He did, and then sunk to the ground, breathless. What is wrong with me? Not a thing. Why can't I get it right? You are getting it right, but you can't feel the difference, so that means you won't get it right next time. What is the difference? The speed and the placement, the accuracy. Try again. He stood back up, swung into action. Grandmaster Keno nodded his head. Good. Young Eric sunk to the ground again, trying to catch his breath. Grandmaster Keno smiled at him. I think you need some head work. Young Eric sighed. Why? What did I do wrong? Your question reveals the answer. Eric nodded in understanding. Grandmaster Keno sat down in front of his grandson on the sand, pulling his legs into a lotus. Let's talk about your confidence. I feel confident. Do you? I think so. When was the last time you competed in a tournament? When I was 16. I remember. You won. Of course. Why do you say of course? If you're Ricky Keno's kid, you have to win. And if you don't, well, then kids will feel free to beat up on you, which they've tried to do your entire life. Yes, sir. How many times have you actually been jumped? Too many to count. Does your father know about this? No, sir. Well, not every time. Why didn't you tell him? What was he supposed to do about it? Go complain to the school? Then it's not just spoiled little rich kid isn't as good as his dad, but then it's he had to get his daddy to come and take up for him. No thanks. I'll take my beating. Did you usually lose? No, I usually won, unless there were a bunch of guys at once. And if you usually won, why would they think that you weren't as good as your dad? Well, they thought that before they tested me. I had to prove myself over and over. Then they started bringing friends, big, mean, strong friends. I got my butt handed to me many times. So you can take a beating. You've shown that in the training, too. Young Eric shrugged. No big deal. It keeps me humble. I'm thinking it keeps you too humble. I have confidence, Granddad. I really do. Do you think you can win at the challenge? Yes, sir. At least I hope I can. Not the same thing. He nodded. I think I can. I'm going to need you to know. How can I know? That's my department. So it's you who needs to know. I do know. You will win, but I need you to go into the event with the confidence of knowing. Granddad, I don't understand. Anything can happen. I could lose. He shook his head. Those are not the words of a champion. Son, words have power, and some words are self-fulfilling. Then what am I supposed to do? Believe in yourself. Not because you're Ricky Keno's son, but because you've put forth the hard work that it takes to win. You're strong, you're quick, you're skilled, your instincts are right on. Yesterday against Joey, when you let go, you instinctively dodged his fist. So, trust yourself. Let go. What does Obi-Wan Kenobi tell Luke in the first Star Wars? He tells him to let go and use the Force. Grandmaster Keno nodded. As silly as it sounds, that's exactly what you need to do. And what if I do that and fail? What if I'm the first Keno to lose a Keno challenge? Okay, you want to go there? What if you are? What happens to you? I guess I live in disgrace for the rest of my life. Wow, Eric, I had no idea you were thinking this way. Son, people try and fail all the time. Life does not end, and the failure only lasts as long as it takes you to rise up and try again. So, if I were to fail, you would support me to represent the family again? First, you are not going to fail. I'm telling you. I know what I'm doing. But if somehow you talk yourself into failing, not only would we trust you to represent us again, we'd insist upon it. So you may as well prepare yourself to win, 'cause you eventually will. He sighed. This Keno challenge, Eric, does not take place out of pride to say that the Kenos never lose. It's much more important than winning a tournament. It's raising warriors who don't quit, who give it their all. If you were to lose, and you won't, but if you did, the world would be watching to see how you handle that loss. They would be watching to see if you get back up, hold your head up high, and try again. That would teach the world much more than you winning. And so either way, you fighting in this challenge is a good thing, a wonderful thing, and I'm proud of you thus far. Give it your all. Try your best. Don't give up. Then, win or lose, you will not disappoint me. Young Eric's eyes moistened, and he nodded his head. It's strange. Sometimes I feel very confident, and sometimes I feel like I'm nothing compared to you or my father or my uncles. You are an amazing young man, Eric. You've already surpassed your father and I. You just don't realize it. Just like your father doesn't realize that he surpassed me. My father? Yes. He has confidence issues? Yes. It sounds silly, doesn't it? Yes. He is like the ultimate guy. Father, husband, man. Exactly. And he shouldn't have any confidence issues, right? Right. And so I'm trying to show you that you are the same. Other people would look at you and think, why in the world would someone like him have confidence issues? Eric looked down. Well, maybe it's all the times I got beat up back in school, and like, look at my face right now. You faced and held your own against men who are at a much higher level than you. When you beat all those black belts the week before, did you think it was a shame for them? No. Why not? Because they were black belts and I'm a third Dan. Exactly. There was no shame in that for them, and there should be no shame in that for you against guys who are close to being grandmasters. Young Eric nodded. Grandmaster Keno smiled. Your humility is good, but don't let it become distorted. Now, let's get back to work. Young Eric's phone went off, and he rose and ran to where it sat on the top of the cooler of water. Hey, Dad, how's it going? It's good. Your sister is amazing and obviously totally in her element. Your so-called brothers are also amazing. Logan is going to make an immediate name for himself, and Gabe is going to do what Gabe always does, which is to go multi-million viral. Watch on Monday. I will. So I heard that you had a visitor last night. Yes, sir. I know Dad wants you to stay at his house. Yes, sir. I appreciate your willingness to cooperate. Well, I wasn't so willing, but I complied. Why not so willing? Because the guy is after Jordan, not me. But also, if he did come after me, I'd welcome it because I'd love the chance to show him that I'm not some little girl he can knock around. That's revenge talking. Well, he needs someone to kick his butt. I understand. But what I need right now is to know that you're safe. So stay at Dad's. And by the way to be observant. We have the video footage, we have the butts, we'll have the DNA, and it will all show that he was at our house when Jordan was there. Meaning he didn't accidentally show up at the wrong time at Jordan's house to see his children. He is specifically going after Jordan. New scene. It's still September 28th. It's Saturday afternoon at the Omni Nashville, Tennessee. Gabe was in heaven. Rehearsals were over until Monday, and they had the rest of the afternoon to chill until they went to dinner with Taylor's parents and Logan and the Nash Smiths. Both Taylor and Gabe had quickly showered and dressed in warm, cozy sweats. Taylor had been allowed to come to his room to spend some time with him before dinner, and they were currently snuggled up together on the bed watching the dogs beat up on South Carolina. Taylor was asking great questions about the game, questions that showed she was understanding the complexities. Gabe was explaining things to her. Could a guy be any luckier than to find a girl so beautiful, so intelligent, so talented, and so interested in things that he was interested in, like martial arts, guns, and football, and other sports? Of course, he wasn't just explaining the game to her. He was taking plenty of time to pull her close, to kiss her, to touch her, not intimately, just a touch of her shoulder, a stroke of her cheek. His hand resting on her thigh at this moment, life was perfect. She smelled so good, she tasted so good, her voice was so sweet. Heaven. The problem with life being so sweet is you immediately want to figure out ways to keep this moment or to continue this moment. He knew that wasn't going to be possible. He was going into training. She was going back to school. He was 18. She was 17. A year difference that seemed like a giant chasm. She lived an extremely affluent life with her parents. He had a lot going for him, but he wasn't affluent like them. Gabe had a good job waiting for him in January. He had his own foundation worth millions, though that money wasn't for him. It was to serve underprivileged kids and communities. Still, he didn't have to have it all figured out. Just have a plan, his father had told him, and his plan was to get through training, get started on school, wait for Taylor to graduate from high school, see what she decides she wants to do, and if it seems right and God answers his prayers, then ask her parents if he could marry her. He understood they were young. He understood that they may ask him to wait, and he would wait. He would wait as long as it takes, because he just couldn't see that anyone would be more perfect for him than Taylor Keno. Oh, she was a catch, all right. Millions of guys wanted her. Right now, though, he had her, and he wanted to make sure that stays that way. He turned to her when she asked the next question. But why don't they at least try instead of taking a knee? I mean, what do they have to lose? He smiled. He loved the fight in her. Well, they do have something to lose. South Carolina is going into halftime with only 2 scores back. That's doable, especially because they get the ball when they come back. It's 3rd and long, and the half is about to run out. They're not getting anywhere running the ball. Georgia has shut them down completely. But they could, throw a Hail Mary, right? I mean, why not try? Because the odds are against them, and they could throw an interception or fumble. They're playing it safe for now so that they don't give the Dogs a chance to score again before half. Well, I don't think a winning team should play it safe. He smiled at her. Well, you're right, sort of. But coaches have to answer for every decision they make, which sometimes makes them stick with the routine calls. He grabbed her and pushed her down on the bed. You are so freaking adorable. Do you know that? She smiled. You're pretty cute yourself. He brushed his hand over her face and touched a finger to her lips. Taylor, I am really in love with you. Me too, she said with a giggle. He lowered his head and kissed her slowly, pulled away, and then kissed her again, pressing close against her. Her arms reached up around his neck and held him tight, but he lifted his head when someone knocked on the door. Gabe jumped up immediately and went to the door and looked through the peephole. It was a hotel employee, looked like from the restaurant. Room service, the guy said as he knocked again. Gabe looked toward the bed. Taylor, take your phone, go to the bathroom, and call your dad. We didn't order room service. Taylor did what he asked immediately. She'd learned over the past few months to trust him and to act immediately when he was trying to protect her. She grabbed her phone and ran into the bathroom. Gabe turned back to the door. We didn't order any room service. You have the wrong room. No, sir, this is room 927, and that's the room I was sent to. Gabe instinctively touched his waistband. His gun wasn't there because he hadn't traveled with it because he flew on a commercial flight. He wasn't old enough to carry a gun unless he was an Ameritech agent, which he was briefly and will be again in January, but he couldn't have his gun now. Well, you can just leave whatever it is right there and walk away. I'm not opening the door, Gabe said. The guy gave a salute and turned to someone else walking in the hall. There was another knock on the door. Okay, Gabe, it's me. You can open the door now. Gabe breathed a sigh of relief at the sound of Taylor's dad's voice. He looked out again to be sure and then opened the door. Ricky Keno stood there smiling. Sorry, kiddo. It was a bet between my wife and I, and you just won me a week of back rubs. Gabe stepped aside to let Mr. Keno into the room. He went to the bathroom and told Taylor to come out. Taylor came out and came straight to her father. She was trembling. He put his arms around her. Oh, honey, did that scare you? She sniffed and nodded her head. Sweetheart, I'm sorry. Your mother and I were putting Gabe to the test. He did exactly what he should have done. He proved to us that you're safe with him. He looked up at Gabe and held out his hand. Good job, son. Gabe sighed. I'm not so sure about that. Really, though, I reached for my gun. I can't wait until I have it again. Until then, you'll have to depend on your wits and your body, and I believe in you. Obviously, since I just won your bet for you, but it kind of hurts that Mrs. Keno would bet against me. I think she was betting against you as much as... I think she wasn't betting against you as much as she was just disagreeing with me to disagree. But anyway, Gabe, that was quick thinking. Good judgment. Proud of you. Thank you, sir. And Taylor, did she argue with you when you told her to go lock herself in the bathroom? No, not at all. She immediately did exactly what I told her to do. Ricky smiled. Good girl, Taylor. She shrugged. I've learned that you guys know what you're doing. I'm proud of you both. I've learned that you guys know what you're doing. Well, I'm proud of you both. Well, kids, it's almost dinner time. Taylor, you come back to the room with me and get dressed. Gabe, see you in about 30 minutes. Yes, sir. He smiled at Taylor. She kissed him on the cheek as she passed. He sighed. New scene. It's still September 28th, Saturday evening, Nashville Live, Nashville, Tennessee. Gabe looked around as they emerged from the limo. It was obvious Nashville Live was a high-end restaurant. There was a line out front, and Gabe felt bad that they were ushered in past everyone. But maybe the couple out front didn't have reservations, he thought. But maybe the people out front didn't have reservations, he thought. He glanced at Logan. Cool place, huh? Logan nodded. One day, I'm going to sing here. Gabe smiled. I totally believe you. He shook his head. Wow, I just had a vision of you singing here. I mean, literally, it popped into my head. It made me dizzy. So really, I believe you. Logan grinned. Cool. What was I wearing? Gabe laughed. It was too fast for me to see. So you think you're becoming like psychic, like Aunt Jeffy? He shook his head. No, but something happens every once in a while. I don't know why, and I can't control it. Gabe and Logan followed the Kenos to the back of the restaurant, closest to the stage. The men all wore suits. The ladies were dressed to the hilt. Taylor had on the blue evening gown that he remembered she'd worn back in Pine Forest at the ladies' night out. She was take your breath away beautiful. The Smiths, Toby, Caroline, Grace, and Brody, were already there, and they rose as the Kenos approached. Toby Nash, tall and large with his big friendly smile, greeted everyone brightly. Logan shook hands with him and then with Brody, who used his legal name, which was Smith. Brody turned 22 last July, just a week before Logan's own birthday, and was a big-time college baseball player. He was almost an exact replica of his father. His hair might be a shade lighter, but only a shade, and he obviously had his father's build. Then Logan took Miss Carol's hand and smiled warmly at her and shifted his gaze to Grace, who offered her hand to him. He took her hand and smiled. Grace, like Logan, was into music, mostly singing, and she used her father's stage name, Nash. She was beautiful, Logan thought. She'd gotten her father's coloring with dark hair and big blue eyes. She was stunning. Logan would be interested if she wasn't 5 years older than him. There was a big difference between 20 and 25. Gabe also greeted everyone, and once the ladies were seated, he sat down. He looked around. The place was nice, and the aromas were making his mouth water, and there was someone playing piano, and Gabe smiled. It reminded him of his sister, Violet. Taylor immediately took out her phone. Ricky didn't say anything about it because she'd been asked to get some content for Gabe's social media sites. She pointed her phone at Gabe first and nodded her head to let him know she was live. He smiled. Hey, everyone. So we're here at the Nashville Live restaurant, and this place is smoking. I'm obviously way out of my element, but I'll try to keep up. Taylor's going to get some good footage for you, and I'll leave that up to her because she's a lot more sophisticated than I am. Taylor turned the phone to her face. Hey, everyone, she said with a giggle, and then turned the phone to the table. Everyone say hi to all of Gabe's followers. We have a treasure trove of people here. This is the Toby Nash. Toby smiled and nodded at the phone. Hello, everyone, he said in his deep, smooth voice. And you all know this his gorgeous wife, Caroline Smith, former judge and current producer of America Can Dance. And she runs the New York School of Dance, which, by the way, has locations in Nashville and Los Angeles. Carol blew a kiss. And this beautiful lady is their daughter, Grace Nash. And, be on the lookout for her because she can sing like her dad, only prettier. She does gospel music. Grace giggled and waved. This hunk is Brody Smith. And he plays baseball for the Tennessee Vols, but we won't hold that against him. Brody laughed and gave a small salute. And then you'll know my parents. No big deal. Ricky and Bree both laughed and waved. And this cute guy is my cousin Logan, and we are all so stoked to hear him sing Monday night on America Can Dance, so make sure you watch. She put her face next to Gabe's. And here we are, back to just little old me and Gabe. Gabe, anything else you want to say? We have like 20,000 watching right now. Gabe smiled. Well, if we have that many watching, we need to take advantage of it. Have y'all done something nice for somebody today? If not, go do it now. Get video and send it to us at the link on my website. We'll make a montage. And also post in the comments section of this video and let us know what you did. I know we're not supposed to do something and then brag about it, but if it helps others to be encouraged to do something, then I think that's cool. Taylor nodded. Okay, you heard it. We'll do something too, and we'll get back on later if you want to see what we ordered to eat. We love you guys. Bye. She put her phone away and smiled at everyone. Thanks, everyone, for putting up with that. It's not just putting up with it, Carol said. I'm pretty sure that kind of stuff is exactly what the producers are counting on. Ricky, Bree, and Toby all agreed. Grace smiled. Gabe, what you said, you touched me. You have all those people watching, and you use it to get them to do something kind for other people. I think I'm in love with you. Gabe's face reddened. Well, half the world is, Taylor put in, but he's mine, so don't go getting any ideas. Catfight, Logan quipped. Grace shook her head. No, Taylor is way above my grade. I concede. Oh, stop, Taylor said. So what nice thing can we do for someone? Taylor asked. They all looked at each other and then looked around the restaurant. Well, the people here are not in need of any financial assistance, Toby said. Not the patrons, but maybe the servers and the kitchen help, Carol said. I mean, I used to be a waitress, and it's hard work. Toby smiled at his sweet wife. You're right. So what if I leave a $1,000 tip for all the servers and kitchen workers? That would be nice, Carol said. You'd certainly make someone's day. Okay, that's Toby. Now what can I do? Carol said. Let me think. Her eyes searched the place and came to rest on an elderly gentleman sitting at a table all alone. I'm going to go talk to that man and see why he's here all alone. She rose. Toby, you know what to order for me. I'll be back. Gabe and Taylor smiled as they watched. The man's eyes got big as Carol came toward him. They couldn't hear what was being said, but the man smiled and nodded. Carol sat down. She spoke to him for a few minutes and touched his hand and patted it, and he wiped tears from his eyes. Then they both stood, went to the dance floor, and she danced with him. And afterward, she walked him back to his table and kissed his cheek, then turned and came back to sit with the group. Okay, you have to tell us, Bree said. Carol wiped at the tears in her eyes. His name is Brennan Turner. Today is his 50th wedding anniversary, or it would be if his wife hadn't passed away 5 years ago. They came here on their first anniversary, and they had always talked about coming back, but they never did. So ever since she died, he's come here every year in her honor. I asked him if he would honor me to dance in her place. Such a sweet man. So much heartache. I told him that I believe we will see our loved ones again because of the gift of Jesus. He said he used to believe and maybe he would do something he hadn't done in a long time. Pray. That is beautiful, Caroline, Toby said. I'm so proud of you. Well, let's all add our prayers to his. Look, Ricky said that he will find his way back to God in Jesus' name. Amen, they all responded. And Carol added, I know something that Grace and maybe Logan can also do for him. What? Grace asked. He said that the night he and his wife came here, they played Unchained Melody, and that had been their song ever since. She stopped, smiled, and nodded at Grace and Logan. I'm sure if Toby spoke to the manager, he would let you two sing that song for the man. Do you know it, Logan? I know Grace knows it because she sang it in a talent show in high school. Logan nodded. Yes, I know it. I can take the harmony, that is, if Grace wants to do it. Grace's eyes sparkled. I'd love to, but who's going to play for us? She asked pointedly, turning her eyes to her father. He laughed. Of course I will. Straight through, like the Righteous Brothers, right? Grace and Logan both nodded. Okay then, Toby said as he rose. I'll go speak with management. Taylor and Gabe smiled at each other. This is so much fun, Gabe, Taylor said. I just love you. He grinned. I just love you too. So what are we going to do? Taylor frowned. Well, I don't have much to offer as far as like financial stuff, but I was thinking like Miss Caroline did. There's a young girl at the table up near the front who was in a wheelchair. I think I'd like to go talk to her. May I? Ricky nodded. Yes, but take Agent Tanner with you, he said with a smile. Gabe grinned. Got it. Now? No time like the present, Ricky, Bree, and Taylor all said at the same time. And that is the end of chapter 23.